What's up guys, welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/TalesFromTheLaw. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. This story's called, Of Course the Judge Can Read It. I'm a clerk at a civil court in Brazil. My job includes dealing with lawyers and parties who walk up to our counter, as well as dealing with all the stages of a lawsuit. A civil clerk's day-to-day work consists in mostly dealing with everything a judge would be supposed to deal with, like reading petitions, documents, and other legal stuff submitted by the litigants, type orders, and other legal documents which will get our initials, submit the text to their supervisor, who will check if everything is okay, and then either getting the judge's signature on it, or, if something is wrong, correct it and then get the signature. In almost every court, the judge doesn't even read what they're signing if they didn't type it, since they are supposed to trust the supervisor they directly appointed. There are, of course, exceptions. If something submitted is very important or involves complex matters, we must send the case files directly to the supervisor, and if it's incredibly important, to the judge, who will then read everything carefully between hearings and their other work. If we sent everything directly for the judge's consideration, a huge bottleneck would be created and no one would have any work. One wet-behind-the-ears lawyer who showed up at our counter a few years ago, however, didn't seem to understand that it's a judge's prerogative to delegate whichever tasks they may seem fit. The moment she opened her mouth, I knew she would be trouble. She had the classic, "get me your manager" tone, which I'm sure everyone is familiar with. She also emphasized every last word in her sentences. One last thing before the story, everything here is digital, so when we submit something to someone, we actually just move the digital files in our system from one queue to another. Everyone, even judges, is mandated to obey each queue's order unless something is urgent. The parties in the story are as follows. Me, a smiling, zealous, and upright clerk. Supervisor, the closest thing I have to a boss, awesome non-confrontational man who loves to maliciously comply and pretend like he didn't. The judge, aloof and busy. I've only seen her at her office like 3 times. Doctor important. She will talk to your manager and she will have your job, probably. The story starts in the morning of a 10-hour day for me. At this time, the courthouse building is closed to everyone but lawyers. There she comes, blonde, mid-40s with an impatient demeanor and her bar ID in hand. She waits 30 seconds before barking, "Is there no one to serve me?" I get up. "Good morning. I need to talk to..." My initials, "and I need it now." Now, that never happened before. No one ever talks about the initials on files. They just want to talk to a clerk. That would be me. What's the matter? "You were the one who typed this order, right?" "Sure, is anything wrong?" Of course there's something wrong. You typed it, not the judge." And what's wrong about it?" "You're just a clerk. You can't possibly do a judge's work." Now, not only do I do part of a judge's work, I probably know more about that kind of order than my judge herself, since it's a menial job with which she doesn't bother. Her case. She made a very abusive contract with a client who then didn't pay her what she expected to be paid. 80% of the client's monthly earnings for 2 years. And she was pro se filing for losses with a claim of urgency. My order, not urgent, citation to be served via mail. The very first step in a lawsuit after the initial claim. My supervisor heard the drama brewing and came up to us. "Everything is made under the judge's supervision, Doctor." "I don't care. I want to talk to the judge and have her read my petition." "I read your petition and OP followed the correct procedure." "Is he the judge? Are you the judge?" "I wish." He is so rude. Can't you do something about it?" Supervisor completely ignoring her remark. "No, he is not the judge and neither am I. What is the matter?" "Oh my God, can no one here understand such a simple thing? I want the judge to read my petition and issue an order." "You mean the exact same order OP issued, I checked, and she signed?" "Yes, because then it would be an order issued, checked, and signed by a judge." The only thing that matters is the signature though. What? I thought she would burst. She got red and she started ranting about public workers' incompetence, how her taxes are funding our laziness, and how it is her right as a citizen to have the judge read her petition. While she's ranting, my supervisor looks at me and I can see the malicious compliance brewing. We wait patiently until she stops repeating the word absurd every other sentence. Okay, doctor, I think I understand now. You want me to put your case's file in the judge's queue? And do it fast. It's very important. I'll come back in the afternoon to check if she read it. Supervisor with a huge grin. Sure, ma'am. Please do. Now, my judge hates to be bothered with a passion. When someone enters her office, be them workers or lawyers, they better not be wasting her time with something my supervisor or one of the clerks could have dealt with. Just so you can get the picture, we celebrate her birthday in our office and she never shows up. She pays for the cake and celebration, but she doesn't attend. You're not actually gonna send it to the judge's queue, are you? She did ask it, didn't she? We are hereby forbidden to touch the case, no matter how many requests she sends, unless she gives up on her claims. The dreaded judge's queue. Most lawyers do their best for their case to not end up there. The judge's queue is meant for complicated matters that makes a case come to a halt. No urgent matters, which is a separate queue. It's about matters that will require the judge to pore over the entire case's file while consulting every law known to man. It's so low priority that at the time, that queue's first case in line got there 1 year ago. And that is a very good date considering some judges have their queues last 3 or more years. So my supervisor sends it to the judge's queue and we go back to work. My judge arrives, we only know that because she logs into Skype, and my supervisor gives her a heads up about Dr. Important. She replies, I'll talk to, My supervisor shows that to me and we share a look. This is very rare. My judge would normally reply, don't let her near my office. By 3 p.m., when our counter is full of litigants and lawyers, Dr. Important comes back. She pushes people on the queue and screams she has very important business with the judge. My supervisor quickly walks up to her. Your case is in the judge's queue now, doctor. Did she read it yet? Please follow me. She will talk to you now. Now, this part of the story was told to me by my supervisor, so I'm paraphrasing his paraphrasing. They went upstairs with Dr. Important complaining about everything in the building. The handrails are too high, the steps are too big, etc., and shaking a copy of her complaint around. My supervisor knocks on the judge's door and opens it. Instantly, Dr. Important's demeanor changes to a very sweet and smiling lady. Yes, how may I help you, doctor? Your Honor, I humbly request that you read my case. Didn't you read it, supervisor? Of course I did. It's for losses in a lawyer contract. It's very important because it's not important at all. But it's urgent. Not urgent. Now, this was told by my supervisor who likes to tell stories, so take it with a grain of salt. He said the judge took the copy of the complaint off Dr. Important's hands, read the first 3 sentences out loud, said, not urgent at all, crossed out the big, bold, urgent typed above the claim, and returned it to Dr. Important. Anything else, doctor? She demands you read her entire complaint, Your Honor. Is it in my queue? Of course it is. I'll get to it then. Anything else, doctor? Can my case go back to the regular queue? I will get to it and then see if it needs to. Some say Dr. Important is still waiting for the judge to read her case to this day. Honestly, serves her right because, okay, it's a government thing, so you're supposed to wait a ridiculous amount of time like the rest of us, okay? As citizens, it is our right to service. Not quick service or good service, but service. This story's called Bamboo Law. My neighbor was growing tons of running bamboo. There are types of bamboo that are native here, but I was under the impression this was one of the many invasive bamboos around. It was getting in my yard, messing up my fence, and moving towards my house. Despite being a mostly night shifter in the medical field, I got up in the middle of the day to civilly tell the neighbor to control his plants. He's always been rude to me, so I don't know what I expected, but he rudely told me that my yard is my problem, and from that point, we were playing hardball. I had no idea how hardball was on, but it was on. First, I typed up a letter basically also telling him to control his plants and hand-delivered it. He didn't appreciate it and continued to be rude. Okay. From there, I contacted tons of landscapers, a conservation ranger, the botany department at a local university, the agricultural department, and somewhere along the lines, I learned the local court had an office for agriculture law. Apparently, encroachment is a local ordinance violation, and I can also take the doofus to court civilly for my fence and yard damage. First, I had to go down to the agriculture law office and fill out a detailed complaint about the problem. It was dealt with quickly, and I think the reason why was that the case is the bamboo was also aggressively spreading to government land. After I come back from work in the morning, I'm greeted by tons of action going on all over my street. Surveyors in the government property, which is an empty lot on the other side of the neighbor's lot, people running what looked like a lawnmower over both the neighbor's property and government property and the street, then spray painting markings all over, etc. Funsies, I think, and go to bed. My cat and I sleep until I'm rudely awakened by pounding on my door. Someone from the court served me a stack of papers without saying anything, then walked away. It's a copy of my complaint, a report by some judge saying the case is substantiated and worth court time, then 2 orders to appear. The only defendant was my neighbor. In one order to appear, I was the plaintiff, and in the second one, the plaintiff was the city and provincial governments. I was ordered as a witness in the second one. A few days later, we go to court. I was told to present my complaint. In my case, my complaint was his bamboo was growing into my yard with stalks going through my fence and it's running in the direction of my house. My evidence? A few pictures, the letter I gave him, and a sketch over a satellite map in Microsoft Paint. The neighbor had lawyered up and I was on my own. The case was postponed. The next case was the city and province versus the neighbor. Now, holy crap, their complaint was a little more in-depth. They were saying how it might endanger utilities, how the sidewalks and streets are in danger, how it's interfered with some city gardening project, etc. They had a landscaper, biologist, and engineer as witnesses. The biologist presented some lab tests that determined the species of the bamboo to be a particularly aggressive species. The landscaper talked about it being difficult and expensive to remove. The engineer showed ground-penetrating radar images to show the rhizomes were approaching different utilities. They were set. They also had hundreds of pictures playing on slideshow. I basically said, "Yeah, it's in my yard too." I left court feeling like a joke after listening to everyone else's testimony. A week later was the big appearance. I went in for round 2 a few days later. Presented my evidence in my case again. The neighbor and the lawyer argued with the judge. It was a quick win. $328.43 is how much, translated to US dollars, I got out of that to fix my fence. The neighbor would be responsible for getting a landscaper to get it out of my yard. The city's case? After that appearance, the resolution was for him to contain his growing areas with an underground barrier, and he'd be responsible for hiring the appropriate people to remove it from anywhere outside of his barriers. The city and province would be responsible for protecting utilities from it. Today, it's 4 p.m. 4 days after the resolutions, now there's a giant trench around his yard, and some anti-bamboo plastic is being installed. There's landscapers removing bamboo from all around the outside of his property. The city and province are installing protection on the utilities. The damaged area of my fence is being replaced. He's basically having to have his entire fence replaced, etc. Things are right. Now, That is freaking ridiculous. Now, of course, it's a good thing that this was brought to the attention of the government because invasive species are a real problem, or they can be. Anyways, the neighbor was obviously acting like a jerk and he had what was coming to him brought to him. This should go without saying, but don't bring any sort of life forms from foreign countries over to your country because that can go very, very wrong. Now, I'm not just talking about rogue bamboo, I'm talking about like full-on pandemics. Obviously, that's not as much of a risk now because everyone is going everywhere nowadays, but I'm just saying, be careful. This story's called "The Police Were Uncooperative, My Only Witness Died, and I Won the Case by Doing Nothing." The following case is not thrilling, but it is a typical case that an insurance defense firm would handle on a regular basis. One of the partners, as happens sometimes, handed me a small subrogation case for our insurance client and told me to resolve it. Our insured, a man of around 75, was driving his car on a 4-lane road in the left lane. The defendant, a lady who had been involved in a grisly murder as an accomplice about 15 years ago when she was 18, was in the right lane. The lady sideswiped our insured's vehicle, causing like $4,000 in damages. At the scene, our insured said that he was just driving and then he was sideswiped. The defendant said, "I don't know what happened, officer." The lawsuit was about 6 or 7 months old when I got it, and the partner who was initially handling the case had spoken with the insured on 2 occasions and sent him a letter. When I received the file, the trial was a few weeks away, so I printed the pictures of the vehicle, sent a subpoena to the police officer, and tried to call the insured. I got a busy signal, so I put the phone away. A few days later, I got a call from the police officer who filed the report. "I'm not gonna make it to court because I'm off on the court date." "Alright, well, when are you available?" "The police report is hearsay. You don't need me anyway." "Ma'am, what I need you for is not hearsay. I'll reset this for a date that you are available for." That wasn't helpful. I called the defense attorney and we pushed the trial out about a month and a half. I issued a new subpoena on the police officer. I tried to call our insured again. I got a busy signal. I pulled up LexisNexis and looked up our insured. He died the previous month. I'd never had this happen before. I called the insurance adjuster handling this claim. "Hey, I hate to tell you this, but our guy is dead." I talked to the partner who had handed me the case. He suggested that we fake it. I'll take the adjuster to court, I'll call the defendant as my witness, then I'll call the cop, and then I'll get the pictures of the vehicle into evidence using the adjuster. The adjuster could also testify to damages. The adjuster is willing to try. About a week later, I get a call from the cop. "I can't come to court. I have training and I have a major surgery that's been scheduled for a long time on that day." I really wanted to call her sergeant and complain, but it wasn't worth the trouble. So it's going to be the adjuster and I. We'll probably lose since I have no impeaching evidence against the defendant now. I have no witnesses to impeach her version of events. Suddenly, I get a phone call from the defense attorney, and they agree to pay the claim in full. I've never told that attorney that my guy was dead, but someday I kind of want to. Just goes to show you should keep that poker face on as long as you can. That's kind of unfortunate timing for that person to die. By the way, in case you've noticed that I'm not my usual lively self, I'm just kind of tired. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.